What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to take a first look, at least from an architect's perspective, of Nvidia's new Omniverse platform. There's a lot to it, and I'm not going to cover absolutely everything, but I want to give you a rundown, my first thoughts, opinions, before jumping into it. If you happen to learn something or just, like the video, please demolish that like button. It really helps me out a lot. Also subscribe. Lots more videos on the way as always. So, Nvidia Omniverse. This is something I heard about months ago, and I knew it was coming out, didn't know when, and I looked, and lo and behold, Tuesday, a couple days ago, the beta dropped. So it's an open beta. You can download it yourself. I'm going to leave a link to this in the description below, so you will find it very easy. I'm basically just going to spend this video scrolling through here and show you all the features it has, everything that we can hopefully look forward to seeing, and you actually have the option of trying it out yourself. I've also downloaded it, and I'm not going to really jump into what I've found, but I've had some problems with it, so that's another reason why I'm not going to get into it. But first of all, what is it? It is, at first glance, it looks like, oh, it's a nice new rendering program, this or that. It's a lot of different places you could have all your assets and a good way of organizing things. And yes, it's that and a lot more. In a nutshell, it's used for a lot of different types of industries, and which is why I want to say that I can't say that it's going to be the best program ever for architects. I'm sure this applies, I know it applies to architects because of the integrations that it already has involved, but I can't say that this is going to be the best product for an architect, and I wish I could say otherwise because it looks really great. So when you, at first glance, it looks like a gaming engine. It looks like a place where you can put all of your assets, your models and everything, and get a nice looking model pretty quickly. And in a sense, it is that, but with a lot more. And let's get into it now a little more deeply so that all of this makes a little bit more sense. So again, you can download the beta, and I'd recommend that. What they're trying to promote heavily is collaboration, which is fantastic. We need more of that, and especially being more remote than we ever have been, having the ability to collaborate a lot more on any kind of model or any type of model, any type of workflow is really the idea. And that's what Omniverse is bringing. It's allowing you to essentially use any of the top modeling programs and have all of that end up in one place. And by that I mean Omniverse. It's supporting all these different programs coming together, working together, ultimately to end up in one place for a presentation, a game, whatever it might be, a nice rendering, an animation, whatever it is. And that's great. Like on paper, this looks amazing. So some of the big highlights here, of course, live collaboration between 3D applications and users. That's what I was just saying. All these different programs and more have the ability to come together, which sounds great. And, real-time multi-GPU ray trace support. So, of course, if you're familiar with NVIDIA at all, they're very high on their ray tracing abilities with their newer graphics cards, and they're great, and I highly recommend those for that. But what does ray tracing do really for architects? And, don't get me wrong, it's great, and I love it, and I want to see it, and we're going to see a lot more of it, but ray tracing is just the real-time, sun, shadows, all of that just looking beautiful, all updated in real time. And, most of the programs that you're working with, whether it's a program or a game, is probably not supported by ray tracing. It might look like it is because the quality is good, but it's not really that true ray tracing that you would see in, imagine like a finished 3ds model or 3ds Max rendering and what you can get out of that. And that in real time is sort of the ray tracing that they're going for. And that's great. And along with that is simulation. You can create simulation. So when you put all this together, it looks like the best thing ever. And I will say, when I first heard about it months ago, I thought this was going to be the best thing ever. Now, please take this with a giant grain of salt, perhaps an entire bottle of salt, because I'm just going to give you what my opinion is. And as an architect, I don't see how this is going to be, at least out of the gate, immediately improving on our workflows. Because whenever you watch videos on this, and I would highly recommend that you do, just people using it, trying it out, and of course most of the videos that are out now are them advertising what it is and what it can do, which they all look great. Some of the problems I have with it are it's going to require so much for architects to get this to work and up, basically get up and going, that it may not be worth it in the end to, one, change your workflow, but to change it in such a way that it's so different. And, of course, the integrations are all great, but, maybe this is a long-term thing. And my hope is that it is a little less clunky to use, and you'll if you do try it out, you'll see that for sure, that it is a bit clunky. So let's get a little deeper into why some of these thoughts enter my head. So one of the biggest things besides the collaboration is this USD, and that is Universal Scene Description. USD first originated and was created by Pixar, the animation company, which is great. And the whole reason they put that together and made this file format in a way is that it serves as an open source way of sharing and organizing and having content that is shareable, collaboratable. You can use this content anywhere because it's all using the same sort of formatting, which is great. Again, the whole application is built on the fact that every element is going to be this universal scene description, and that's good as well. Same with materials. It's a similar type of thing, but they call them MDL, this material definition language. And it's a completely different way of doing things, as we're familiar with Revit and architecture and all those different programs. They're not necessarily using these formats. So in a sense, you're redoing or starting a completely different workflow to land in this application, in this platform. And there's nothing wrong with that, again, but I think where we are as architects is probably a good place. And this is almost like taking everything you have in one bucket and then just putting it in another one, which is fine if you want to do that, and is appropriate in a lot of instances if you're working with other industries. And I would say if me at an architecture firm is for some reason working with a high-end animation company, trying to make really cool looking animations, movies, commercials, whatever it might be, and my architecture models are going to end up there, then maybe this is something to look to. But again, that would also require another company, other sides of the industry, multiple industries to start adopting this. And again, maybe this is something, a long-term thing where everyone's kind of adopted this, where we like this, and we can all just collaborate with each other regardless of the program. I like that world, don't get me wrong. But I think architecture is, in a way, too specific or too different than what this is trying to advertise itself as, which is a giant universal thing. Again, on paper, looks good. So at the center is the nucleus. And so this Omniverse nucleus is what is hosting and allowing you to integrate all these different programs together and collaborate together. That's great. The idea is that this is literally like a server that you create, and that can be something on your just local drive, but it's something that everything passes through. Or you could set this up to be like a firm-wide, a company-wide server, so that everything that anyone makes and deals with when it comes to anything 3D, assets, whatever, goes through this nucleus, goes through this server, and that everyone can access, and that ends up in the Omniverse world. And that's great. That, again, on paper, looks great. If I were going to start a brand new firm and I didn't necessarily have the knowledge that I have of the architecture programs, I definitely want to start with this because it does allow you to have all the integration for any program that you might start to adopt and feed through this Omniverse, which it's great. Again, on paper, I like this, but in practice, I don't know. All these connectors, of course, I've talked about this already. We have lots of different programs already that are integrated with this and have like connections available to you, which is great. So here's the main pipeline, and I've kind of I just talked on this a little bit, but you have all these different programs that it works with. That's great. All of that information, all that content is fed through this nucleus. It's basically a database, whether it's on your local drive or on a server at an office. And you've got everything that goes out of that into the different programs or applications or whatever you want to call them. I guess they're considered to be called apps within the Omniverse itself. And so there are differences in which apps you use based on what you want to get out of it. So there's more of a gaming engine one, there's more of a viewer one that would probably apply more towards the architects, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But not only, the idea also is that this is a giant open source environment, and the USD is open source, so you can change those formats and make it work for you. And they provide an Omniverse Kit, which is basically allowing you to make your own application, like allowing you to change the way you use all this content that you've fed up into your database. Again, sounds great, but is a bit more advanced than what we would probably hope for as architects. I'm not saying that no architect will use this or that no architect can use this, but this requires a lot if you want to make your own thing. And I'm definitely someone who likes to build their own applications, build their own workflows, and this does appeal to me, but it's very advanced, and what you get out of it is what you put into it. And I can't say that I have the knowledge to necessarily build one of these myself, and jumping into it this is very foreign than something like Revit, just saying that. So all kinds of extensions that you can use to end up building your own. Of course, you're going to use all of this in the platform. If you are familiar with code, C++ or Python, that's what this is built on. It allows you to make apps through this Omniverse Kit. Really cool stuff. Something else they like to, this is something that looks really cool. You're allowing to simulate reality. And this may not be something that I see necessarily useful in an architecture world. I could see maybe in construction where you're trying to simulate a demolition of a building, anything. Yeah, if you're testing from more of an engineering standpoint, I could see simulations, but maybe not so much on architecture. I could see maybe some egressing. 3ds Max has something like that already, so I don't know. This is just something that looks cool. I don't see that necessarily being used in the architecture industry. The visualizing and the rendering, this is the main appeal to the architecture industry. They have one of the apps does allow you to literally view your model with ray tracing immediately, and it's really nice. Now, something I would say to that is it's literally just like Inkscape. It's literally just like Twinmotion, if you're familiar with either of those. If you talk to anyone at Nvidia, they will say it's completely different because this has ray tracing. Well, sure, it does have ray tracing. It does support multiple GPUs, very large scenes. That's great. All of it's real time, much like Inkscape and Twinmotion are as well. Lumion also. That is not enough of appeal for me to want to learn an entire new platform, to have to deal with a server, whether it's just me working on my local drive. That was a lot of the problems I had, is that, it's not just a program to install. You have to set up the database, which is much more technical than it even seems. They make it look pretty easy, but there's a lot of nuances that you want to make sure you're aware of when you set it up. And I'm not going into that at all in this video, and as this is just a first impressions, but really just to sum things up, they do have everything you might want as an architect. This Omniverse platform does, but I can't see myself going to something like this just because of what it is. It is completely different workflow. The output is a bit different, and honestly, for as easy as Twinmotion or Inkscape is to use out of your modeling program, those programs are not asking you to change your workflow once you've modeled things. It's showing you what's there and providing you in a very easy way to build a nice looking scene. I prefer Twinmotion more than Inkscape for that, because it does allow you to really build the scene and you don't have to build everything in a program like Revit. But this is another animal. It's kind of outside. I view it as something that's outside the realm of architecture, just because it is trying to do everything. And in the past, I've thought, oh, well, why not just have one solution for everything? And that's, in theory and on paper, that sounds great, because that's literally what this is. But in practice, it seems to be that it would be a lot harder for this to be formally up and running unless they are able to automate a lot of these different services, and to where it really is a another type of Twinmotion, but really like Twinmotion does everything that you might want it to and more. And honestly, I think Twinmotion does more than what Omniverse does out of the box for sure, because the idea is that there's not much out of the box here. A lot of it is you building scenes, building assets, keeping up with it all, and really building your own library. And that's all fine if you want to do that. And I recommend that if you're starting from scratch and you don't know any of these programs, this might be one to start with or look into. But, you know, it's going to be hard for me to recommend this over Twinmotion. It really is, just for what it is. And I hope that changes, because the idea of collaborating live with multiple programs, anyone across the world, it's all pretty seamless, it's all live. That sounds great. And I just wish we had that in a program that was maybe a little easier to use, maybe a little easier to look at. And I know it's hard for you to visualize what this might look like and what it is, so I would recommend that you try it out, download it, look at the beta. We can look at this application, which, you know, here it is. There's not much here because this is not actually the program, but the programs that you're looking at are the apps are Create, which Create, if I had to compare to something, it's basically a gaming engine. It is Unreal Engine, it's Unity, and it's a place to put your content, build your scenes, and you know, you're really starting from scratch here. And View, this is a lot more of what would appeal to an architect, and this is what I would definitely use if I were looking to use Omniverse. It's this View, and it really is Inkscape. It really is Twinmotion, but I would say it's that, but dumbed down. So what you're getting out of View is that it does provide you with that real-time ray tracing. So it looks really great out of the box, like just looks really good, but it's going to be reliant also on the materials that you have applied and this and that, and I'm a bit against taking something that you have built in Revit and bringing it into a ray trace environment, because you're going to have your materials looking great. Now, if everything is white and it's just for schematic reasons, then that's great. But then why are you even bothering with ray tracing? Like, I just use Inkscape, just use Twinmotion. So this might sound like a super negative, just first thought, first look at Omniverse. And in a sense it is, because I can't say I'm going to put a lot of attention to this, but the potential is here. Like really, like this is the future of architecture. And you know, this channel is built on talking about what is relevant in technology and architecture and talking about the future. This is the future, but it may not look exactly like this. I think it's going to take having this around for a while before something like this is implemented. And maybe someone comes along and builds another app that's just amazing and works so much better, and so much better than Twinmotion or Inkscape. That might be it. I don't know. But we've got this kit, which is going to allow us to really build our own applications, build our own really anything that's using the USD or these materials, the MDL materials. Of course, we've got our file management, which is, it's just a separate portion of it, and then all of our connectors. Right now I have Revit connected, but there's lots of different connectors. Like, this is the appeal as well. And so I think in the future, in the end, we're going to have some sort of application, whether it's Omniverse or not, that's going to allow us to put all these different pieces together. And, you know, there's a lot, you know, an application that puts Rhino, Unreal, Maya, everything together, SketchUp even, it's really exciting. And then finally, the collaboration. This is all built on you having set up this server, whether it's on the cloud, whether it's on a server at an office, or just on your local drive. This is where it is. I would recommend that you look at all the documentation, what this entails, because it's not just download the program, hit launch, and go. I mean, it is in a sense, but like there's a lot more to it than that. And my fear is that there's such an entry that it's going to be difficult to get past that. And for architects, there's just seems like right now there are lots better solutions that are more out-of-the-box solutions that are really quick and provide what I would say higher quality at a quicker pace. It just makes more sense for you to use those. So I hope this was something that was informative to you. You know, I'm not trying to bash the program just for what it is. I'm trying to get a first look on it. I've used it enough to know that it doesn't seem like something I want to implement every day. How about that? And so if you have any other thoughts, if you disagree with me, you have good reasons why that you might want to use it, then definitely let me know. I will stay up to date with this. I want to know what's going on, and do my best to let you know as well. So if you happen to learn something, demolish that like button. Definitely subscribe. That helps as well. And this is the first look of Omniverse. Cool looking stuff. Like the direction that it's going. Hopefully we'll see something more catered towards architects in the future. And maybe I'll end up putting my foot in my mouth in a month or two whenever this seems to be the way to go. I don't know. But we'll find out. Stick around to find out. So hope to see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.